I've been playing the same thing for years now. It's fine, but I want something more. Maybe a new world to explore, a new something to do, or maybe I should quit these games, walk with my legs, and make an adventure of my own. I mean, I have the whole world out there. Hey, what's this weird flower doing here? Nothing ventured, nothing gained, I guess. Boom! Hi! It's me, Nintendo. And look at this game we made costing just $60, which is way less than your insurance for your lag problem. Now you can attack a flower 2 times for you to kill it. Amazing, right? Boss, I don't think that casting a wonder flower effect works like that. Shut up, Brad! You weren't even Japanese! You don't know what we have to do to keep the mind fresh sometimes. Oh, look, Mario's an elephant this time. Oh my god, I need this game! It's a totally different thing now! I miss my legs. 100% true. This story did happen with a Mario fan somewhere. P.S. Stay away from Nintendo employees. They come into your house offering you a console and destroy a part of you. It can be your body or your family. But majorly, it's your wallet they are looking for. Before it was your wrist with the Wii remote, but who knows what they're plotting next. I'm having so much fun! They took my leg movements. Mario Wonder is everything I needed from a Mario game, because for the first time in years, Mario finally surprised me. I played a couple of Mario games in the past few years, and even though I liked them, they're essentially the same game. And I'm not meaning the platform genre game, but I'm criticizing the same enemies, the same songs, and the same scenarios. Last year I finished 3 Mario games, and despite the fact that I loved all of them, I can deny that at least 2 of them felt like I was playing the same game, but with a different perspective. I even wrote a quick review on an app saying it's a fun game, but lacks innovation. And then, by the providence of God, I started playing Mario Wonder last year just to find out that I wasn't being nitpicky. The games were getting lame and repetitive, and Nintendo not only understood it, but also made such an incredible game that I don't think it will ever be surpassed. No kidding. They added so much stuff and in such a creative way that I don't have any idea if they're going to surpass this game with newer ideas. That's the Nintendo I admire. That's the Nintendo that developed Mario Galaxy and Mario Odyssey. And in this video, I will not only explain how this game saved Mario games from the boredom valley for me, but also how Nintendo developers intended to do so, to make my jaw drop at every level and every new thing I discover while playing the game. Mario Wonder didn't just refresh the franchise for me, it completely restored my faith in Nintendo's creativity. My name is Ricouts, your new favorite gaming channel, and I'm glad you're here to listen to me yapping about my journey through this perfect game. Oh, turn on YouTube subtitles if you want more immersion. In an interview with the developers, they openly acknowledged many of the issues players had been pointing out for years. They were playing it too safe with 2D Mario games. In Wonder, Nintendo changed the way they traditionally make games, choosing not to focus on viability, market safety first, but on what they actually had in mind. They wanted to start the project with a question. What if 2D Mario could be weird again? When New Super Mario Bros. Came out, it was a weird game, and for that same reason, it had a multitude of fans. Mario's animations were unique there. You could become a giant Mario that destroys everything, and Mario would even talk to you when you closed your DS. This weirdness was partially abandoned in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and then completely abandoned in future releases such as New Super Mario Bros. 2. Don't get me wrong, they are good games, and I'm glad they were part of your childhood, but you can deny that they played it safe with these titles. In Mario Wonder's early development, they started by recruiting some of the Mario Odyssey staff to bring what they learned from 3D platforming into 2D games. Since 3D Mario never really went through a bad phase after Mario Sunshine, which was pretty divisive, it made sense to unite both Mario styles. No shame on Sunshine here, dirty hands. I haven't played it, so I can defend or attack this title. The idea that 2D Mario was basically the same thing became so ingrained in people's mind that Tezuka, the game's producer himself, admitted that journalists and players were claiming Mario Maker 2 had eliminated the need for a new 2D Mario game. Such a lame statement, by the way.
A game built entirely around players creating levels has a completely different audience compared to a fully Nintendo designed experience. I myself am not a fan of Mario Maker games, I'm not their target audience, and I was begging for a new Mario release. Otherwise, I would have ended up buying New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe instead, which wouldn't have been a bad thing at the time, but Wonder is definitely a better deal. Since players had basically done everything they could with Mario Maker, Nintendo looked for an entirely different approach to Mario games. Because of that, they dropped the idea of using the same engine and decided to build a new foundation for future Mario titles, a variation of the module system engine, already used in games like Splatoon 3 and Tears of the Kingdom, which makes me glad, because it gives some hope that future games will follow Wonder's footsteps. The idea they had in mind was to create a new experience in the Mario universe, along with something shared by both Nintendo philosophy of making games and passionate indie developers, prioritizing content over schedule. Let the ideas flow, let them experiment, and let the developers have some fun, so they can give us some quality time with their games. We wanted to create a game with much more to offer than ever before, so this time we didn't set a fixed time period for development, which is usually decided before we kick off. To create something truly enjoyable, we decided to take our time and dedicate ample budget for development without having to worry about the production schedule. So at first, we only had a small group working on the development.
I can't help but notice how Nintendo managed to keep Iwata's mindset intact in some aspects. When studying Nintendo's game development history, it almost brings a tear to my eye remembering what Iwata said during the most tense moment Nintendo ever faced in console sales, the Wii U era. At the time, the company was under immense pressure, dealing with a not so successful home console and a still not engaging handheld. When Iwata was asked about cutting people from the team to balance the budget, he answered, "You cannot expect people who are afraid of losing their jobs to make games that will surprise players. If employees are worried about being laid off, they won't be able to develop software that impresses people around the world." I didn't have a Nintendo system at the time, only a 360. I only found out about this man's bravery after becoming an adult. Iwata forever deserves our respect. If it wasn't for him and his last Triumph card, we wouldn't have the Switch success nowadays. I know Furukawa is a much more businessman than the passionate about games man Iwata was. And that's fine, because not all his ideas were great. I don't think the Wii was all that great as a console despite some of its great games, for example. But this man's legacy is immaculate. But why did I cite him? Although I feel the need to keep his memory alive in everyone's mind, that's not the only reason. He spoke about surprising players, and that idea still resonates. Odyssey surprised me. Zelda, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom surprised me. Mario Galaxy did too, and Wonder is no exception. Nintendo's DNA is still alive. With a small number of people with no set deadline, the development team could feel a bit uneasy if they didn't have a clear direction from Tezuka himself. They needed a simple, clear goal, something they could put down on paper and rally around. Tezuka-san gave us the task of creating a Mario game full of hidden surprises and wonders. The name Wonder didn't come out of nowhere. Nintendo and producer Takashi Tezuka tied the very title Wonder to the game's design philosophy, a deliberate push toward constant surprises and unpredictable moments through the new Wonder Flower mechanics, encouraging players to expect the unexpected. When I think back for the first time I played the original Super Mario Bros. Game, I remember feeling that it was full of hidden surprises and wonders. Coins would come out when you hit the blocks, and your body would grow bigger with super mushrooms. Back then, everything was new and packed with unexpected delights. However, now that the Super Mario games have been enjoyed by players for many years, those things have somehow become ordinary. What used to be wondrous back then is no longer wondrous today, neither for players nor for us developers. It's really interesting to see how the developers themselves were starting to get tired of it. Hearing this from Nintendo's own employees is a big deal. To me, as a player, the first time I saw the elephant power-up was already a mind-blowing addition. So imagine my surprise when I discovered the Wonder Flowers and realized that they didn't just mix with the pipes, but also transformed the game into a full musical spectacle in the second
level. In only 2 levels, the game broke the usual Mario formula of putting a Green Hill Zone style opening in the first section and a dark cave scenario in the second level, completely replacing it with something unexpected. An elephant with so much charisma, warm living pipes, and an entire musical theater sequence where the Joy-Con itself makes musical box sounds to match the rhythm. Just 2 levels were enough to completely change my expression into one of pure surprise. The game is constantly playing with me in a way where I never know what's going to happen next, especially when it suddenly changes its perspective for a single moment. Even when the game only slightly alters its structure within a level with a Wonder Flower, since not every one of them turns the experience into a full regular show-style spectacle, it's still enough to keep my heart satisfied. I love Mario Wonder, I really do. I must say I have an issue with how challenge is usually handled in Mario games. Let me take 3D Land as an example, a game that mostly served as something I could play while waiting to be attended somewhere. After finishing it, you unlock a new story starring Luigi. The game becomes harder, with much less time to finish each level, and it's basically a predecessor to New Super Luigi U. I get why people enjoy this type of challenge, but I don't. And for 2 reasons. First, I don't enjoy time-based challenge in video games because they increase my anxiety. Even though I like hard games, I don't like this kind of difficulty. To me, it feels artificial, even if I recognize that Mario games usually execute it well. Second, everything ends up boiling down to the same thing. Instead of offering more platform-focused challenges, the game throws a ton of time pressure at you, because the developers seem to think it's more fun this way. Mario Wonder clearly tries to change that. I can't say the game completely avoids time-based challenges. I still haven't finished all the levels, but I can say it's much smarter in how it builds difficulty. These are challenges that require you to adapt to the game's mechanics, rather than frying your brain every 3 sections you play. They focus it on fun, and it just works. Previous 2D Mario games feature variations of challenges that would scale up in difficulty as players progressed. This time though, we decided not to focus on creating such variations but rather on offering a large number of surprises that we thought would be fun. Remember the first time you finished Mario Galaxy? The way every world felt different, not just in its scenarios, but in its game's mechanics too. Sometimes you got tired of aquatic controls and other times you just wanted to be a bee to finally be free. Well, this is also a defining characteristic of Odyssey. Maybe even more so, every bullet bill you take control of, every frog, every secret in the desert that makes you want to explore just to see if there's something interesting hidden around the map, and even the gorgeous clothes. Every aspect I mentioned helped shape the perception of these games as toy box games. Even if the paths were predetermined and not truly free, as our minds like to play tricks on us, I think that's the reason why, since Super Mario World and even New Super Mario Bros. 1, players have been enjoying 2D Mario less and less. Sure, they sold well, but when you think about Mario, you probably think about the 3D games with more affection. That's why bringing the 3D Mario staff to create a new 2D Super Mario that actually wants to genuinely surprise players was so important. They had to aim for that toy box experience, where everything feels fresh and inspired, especially now, when everything that used to be surprising has already become obsolete for the developers and most of all, for the players. A brainstorm was necessary to make this work, a brainstorm where everyone participated, including programmers, designers, and sound designers. They wrote gameplay concepts on sticky notes, many of which had nothing to do with their specific cargoes, and prototypes were created immediately. So guess how many sticky notes full of ideas there were? 100? Of course not. 300? Guess again. 1000? Nope. 2000 was the number of sticky notes used during development. They used everything they had. Okay, not literally everything, but they used most of it. The approach was to take everything to the extreme first and make adjustments later. They had a problem on their hands. On one side, they wanted something entirely brand new, and on the other side, they didn't want to destroy Mario games rules, things players instinctively trust, like knowing you won't fall when you jump into a pipe, or kicking shells and watching them bounce back. That sort of thing. The core of the game was already established, so they had to be creative in how they incorporated these ideas within the Mario universe without it looking like Mario 2, which was not originally a Mario game,
and that's why it doesn't look like a Mario game. And they succeeded. The Wonder Flower and the Wonder Effects became a thing. To make the sound of activating the Wonder Effect feel more unconventional and better match the visual and gameplay changes, they used a lot of up-tempo background music. To give a sense of complete change from the regular course, they introduced dynamic environmental sounds and altered the course background music with digital synthesizers, adding musical styles that had never been heard in Mario's history. We, as players, sometimes don't pay that much attention to these things, but their job as developers is to pass all of these feelings to us while we are playing. Much like a suspense scene in a movie where you don't actively notice the soundtrack becomes scarier over time. Yet, your mind, immersed in the film, understands it and reacts. It makes you feel something, anxiety, curiosity, tension, without you consciously realizing why. Now that you know everything they try to accomplish, see it for yourself. I remember when the internet reacted to this game's review trailer by saying Nintendo was making it to engage people who had watched the Mario movie, and that Mario's facial animations were changed because of it. But that wasn't the case. Once again, the internet was just making assumptions. Just like when people decided that, because of the success of Elden Ring, Nintendo must have been influenced by it while making Tears of the Kingdom. That claim was denied by Nintendo. Not because they were too proud to admit it, but because games take a long time to make. In both of these cases, they also require massive budgets, so you can't simply wrap things up midway and suddenly pivot to whatever happens to be popular at the moment. And when companies do try to do that, things don't always go as planned. In the developers' interviews, they mentioned at least 3 times that they had a huge budget to make this game a reality, which leads to 2 conclusions. First, it's pure misinformation to say Nintendo games are made with the budget of a cup noodles. And second, this is a full AAA we're talking about, with AAA level details across the entire experience, especially when it comes to animations and facial expressions. The purpose of a game's animation is to communicate a character's state to the player. If the game doesn't properly execute this, we end up with a Shadow of the Colossus remake type situation all over again, where despite the wonderful graphics, the protagonist's face is worse than the PS2 facial expressions and sends a completely bland message to the player. You know, there's this huge guy after me, kinda sucks, I guess. And while this Switch isn't exactly a powerhouse in terms of raw technical capability, it offers more than enough room to add extra joints to character models. And more joints means more expression. The broader the range of motion, the greater the variety of movements that can be conveyed. To push this even further, the developers went back to Mario's origins in pixel art and realized that there was still a lot to learn from those simple movements. Lessons they could translate into Wonder's 2D perspective using 3D models. They analyzed everything, including details like jumping with arms fully extended or the sudden stop after sprint. As a result, the characters leave a strong impression of something fresh, energetic, and full of life. However, although making the characters more expressive was a clear improvement, it also introduced a new problem. Their faces now needed to be turned toward players so those expressions could actually be seen. Why did this matter? Within Nintendo, there is a well-known story in which Miyamoto explained that, back in the era of the very first pixelated Mario, giving him a large nose made it easier for players to immediately understand which direction he was facing, allowing them to instinctively move in the correct direction as soon as the game began. However, if that same idea were applied today, having Mario's nose always pointing in the direction he's moving, a modern 3D model would make his facial expressions much harder to see. As a solution, the direction of the character's body now indicates the direction of travel, while the face remains oriented toward the player,
ensuring that expressions are always clearly visible. That's the reason Mario's face looks kinda goofy in this game when it's facing us. It's a clever solution though. Visuals, however, are not the only thing that matters in a Mario game. In the same way Miyamoto once played with our minds by using Mario's design to subconsciously help us understand how to play better, the developers wanted to do something similar here, this time by making the characters feel more distinctive. In past games, you knew that Luigi was slippery but jumped higher, and that Peach was slower but could glide. In Wonder, each character has different jump sound effects to make them feel unique, conveying their movements to players while also giving the game a fresh feeling. So in this game, they decided to use an electric ukulele made of Yezo spruce for Mario's jump sound. By adding string sounds to the familiar action of running before a jump, especially when building up speed to jump farther, they were able to introduce variations in sound dynamics that better capture the feeling of ascending. This is the first time the jump sound actually changes depending on how the player jumps, much like how string instruments produce different sounds depending on how hard or softly the strings are plucked. Have you noticed this? Listen to it.
What a piece! Onward and upward!
These details enhance the experience by a lot, and when it comes to giving characters distinct personalities through sound, one of the developers can explain it better than I ever could. Since we knew we had ample budget to develop the game, we didn't have to worry about the amount of resources we'd spend to craft even small details. You can tell they were genuinely having fun with the project, especially considering the amount of time and budget they had. Hayashida himself described how testing the prototype felt like exploring uncharted territory every single day. As I tested the prototype every day, I tried different ways of playing the game. Sometimes I played like a beginner and sometimes like an advanced player. Every day, there were surprises and discoveries that made me think. I never knew these sounds or visuals were in the game. Because the entire team was involved in development, the team spirit was at its peak, with online meetings becoming the norm, probably due to the pandemic. There was no physical limitation on how many people could be included in those calls. Information was widely shared across the team this way. Some people didn't even turn their cameras on. They were just there to listen while multitasking, but that still allowed ideas to flow freely and enable everyone to contribute more and more polished details. Details like the Goomba's facial expression when they get stuck between blocks. Something that's genuinely hilarious to watch. Despite all of that, I don't think anything can beat the first impression of Elephant Mario. When I think about Mario Wonder, this is one of the very first things that come to my mind. But where did this idea even come from? How do you make another impactful Mario transformation after Cat Mario in 3D World? And no, we're not talking about you, Squirrel Mario, you're just a tanuki with less charisma. Let the man talk. Elephant Mario was another idea that came out of the idea sharing session. But before we arrived at this idea, we first discussed what kind of gameplay we wanted and what we needed to do to achieve it. First, we wanted to make the body bigger. Having a bigger body makes stepping on enemies, hitting blocks, and collecting coins easier, adding ease of play. Also, we wanted the characters to be able to hit blocks from the side and to spray water. We thought these two features would provide more variety to the gameplay. What checks all three of those boxes? An elephant, of course. That's Nintendo philosophy right there. First, think about what could be fun in terms of gameplay, and only later think about how to make it real. With this mechanic, they wanted to create new secrets and new wonders for us to discover. And for that, even the so-called worst 3D Mario game played a role here. I mean, sunshine, water, an elephant spraying water, you know what I mean. A final fun fact about the game, they actually considered letting Mario blow up shells with the elephant trunk. An inflated shell looked cute to them, but it didn't properly fit into the gameplay, so they made a prototype and then scrapped it. That's it. With this video, I think I can summarize not only my personal thoughts about the game, but also objectively state just how wonderful this game is. I truly hope this becomes the quality standard for future 2D Mario games. They achieved a revival here, and I really don't want it to go down the same path as New Super Mario Bros.
getting lamer with each new release. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to help me, you can subscribe and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. And if you want to financially support this channel, consider supporting me on my Patreon. I genuinely love making this kind of video, talking about the development of games I enjoy. If you liked this one, you probably love my Kid Icarus Uprising development video, where I yapped even more than I did here. Have a nice week, and God bless you. Bye bye!